Hi, this is Max. It's October 23rd, 2022, and Craig Kelly is down in Georgia working on the election stuff. So I'll first let him explain what he's doing in general and why he's doing it.
So, Max, I'm down here in Georgia working to make sure that every vote is counted and that every voter who can vote votes. And as you know, Republicans are known for trying to suppress the vote, and they're known for throwing monkey wrenches into the electoral process. And I'm down here to do my best to make sure that does not happen in Georgia.
Okay, the problem I have with that is I sort of look at the parties in three different very general ways, or people in general ways. They're Democrats who think the Republicans are crooks, right? The Republicans who think the Democrats are basically a cabal, right, of cheaters. And then the independents that think the Democrats that they're both the Democrats and Republicans are crooks and cabals. So when you go down and you're trying to get rid of the Republicans, or you're trying to
You're
stop them
misstating
from
me, Max.
quote,
I am trying to make sure that everyone who is legally allowed to vote gets to vote and that every vote that is cast is counted. When I talk to people, I have no idea whether they in particular are Democrat, Republican, Independent, who they voted for, anything like that. I just want their vote counted because if the votes are counted, democracy wins, which is, of course, why Republicans, as a strategy, don't want votes to be either cast or counted.
but what I don't understand is that to me it sounds like you're representing a democratic organization,
No,
an organization that's democratic. You're not down there as like a totally neutral observer.
I am down here as part of the Democratic Party. But when I
Right.
talk to people, when I ask them if they had trouble voting, so forth, I do not ask if they are a Democrat or a Republican. I don't know if they're a Democrat or a Republican. They could be whatever. I'm not asking, I don't care. I will do whatever I can do to help whoever it is get their vote cast if they can legally cast it, and then later on, make sure that vote is counted down the line.
But then why do you need any party affiliation to do this?
Because Georgia law requires it. I can't just
So
do.
why does Georgia law
I
require
have
it?
no idea. That's just what the rules are down here in Georgia. Georgia says each major party, Republicans and Democrats, can have people like me doing what we're doing. We're not lobbying, we're not campaigning for candidates, we're not campaigning for parties. We are doing something to help the process. It's a procedural thing. So,
Right, but that's why to me it's a waste of time and it's just corrupt because it's a corrupt system from the get-go. If you're following a law that says, oh, you have to either be Democrat or Republican to measure these votes, no matter
no,
how
I'm
unbiased
not
you might
measure,
be there.
not measure the votes to make sure they're counted. And maybe there's some world where that's true, but like I said, I don't ask people what their party affiliation is or who they want to vote for or who they voted for. All I do is I say something like, were you able to vote? Okay, can I help you find a remote poll or what they call an advanced polling station? I have yet to ask anyone, and I will not ask anyone what party they're from. That's not what we do.
Right, but what about the Republican people that are doing the same thing?
They're doing what they do. I don't think the Republicans have the same strategy as the Democrats. I think Republicans have realized over the years that they can't win in an out and out democratic process. So they don't want the votes to be cast and counted. They want the process to be thrown about and cast into doubt. So, if you have the United States Senate or the Capitol building, that gets stormed by people under Trump's, push, go make it not happen. They stormed our Capitol and police officers died. People were killed because of that. That happened as part of a Republican effort to stop the fair counting of an election. And we've got gazillions of Republican candidates who say they won't concede if they lose. They have been told it is okay to ignore the democratic will of the American people. That's the Republican stance. My stance and the Democratic Party's stance, I can't speak for them, but that's how I interpret it, is everyone's vote that's legal should be counted. and everyone who can vote should vote. And we're confident.
Right, but
We're confident that if that happens, Americans as a whole will overwhelmingly vote Democratic. Very different ideals about how this is supposed to work. So the Republicans are about suppression, confusion, chaos, and let's be honest about this, they're about insurrection and revolution and countering the rule of law, the rule of centuries of American law that has kept us together as a nation. Republicans as a party are against that. The Republican Party calls the January 6th insurrection legitimate political discourse. What more message do you need that we're approaching this from two different ways?
right. But getting back, my very simple question, right, is you're there as a poll watcher. Is that what we should call this job that you and anybody from the Republican Party might be doing?
Correct. We are poll watchers. We are official
Okay.
poll watchers.
So I'm asking as a poll watcher. I'm saying, well, you're a poll watcher, and I worry that you're not really quite unbiased. You say you're very unbiased, but you're actually representing a political party. And I say, oh, I'm worried about there's actually a bias there. And then you go into a very passionate spiel about how the Republicans are eating children.
No, that's not
And
at
then
all
I
what I
can
said.
only,
That's not at all what I said.
but it's the
I
passion
said they don't
behind it.
respect the rule of law. Are you telling me
Right,
that?
they.
Are you
It's a they.
telling me that the Republican Party, which called the January 6th insurrection an act of legitimate political discourse? Are you saying that's a party that respects law? Is that what you're saying? Killing
I'm not
police
asking.
officers is
I'm
okay?
not,
Are you telling me that?
I, I'm not asking that question. Why do I have to answer that question about what
Well,
happened on
you're
January
telling
6th?
me what I think, so I'm asking you. I'm trying to figure this
No,
out.
no, but it was my question first. My question is, if a person is poll watching and they're coming from the Democratic Party and they're very highly biased against the other party, and again, I assume that the Republican poll watcher is just as equally passionate and biased against the other party, then how can it truly be unbiased? It's just more of a fight. How am I supposed to weigh which one is correct or not correct about whether January 6th was an insurrection or this or that? It doesn't even make a difference. We're only talking about why are you watching these polls?
I'm watching
Like,
these
what are
polls
you-
precisely as I have told you to make sure that everyone who can legally vote votes and that every vote that is cast gets counted. It's my sole mission. I don't ask people if they're Democratic, Republican, Independent. I don't know how much clearer I can be about that. I am not touching the voting equipment. I am not touching the ballots. I am not talking to the poll workers. I'm not doing any of that stuff.
Right. But what I would want to see is a fair vote, just like you do, and just like the Republicans do. But the thing that's
Well,
foremost
I'm
on
not
your
saying
mind,
I won't concede the Republicans' part. I don't think
Right.
Republicans want a fair vote. And that arguably is one of the reasons we're down here, is because Republicans have been trying to suppress the vote in horrendous ways. They've been doing wholesale challenges of voters in the thousands, saying, you know what, we don't think this person can vote. We don't think this person can vote. They're doing everything they can do, short of, at this point, really severe stuff, to make it more difficult for folks to vote. They're narrowing the franchise as much as possible. And that's a history that Republicans have. And before them, when the parties used to be opposite, it was Democrats. But the philosophy is still the same. We want Democrats, left-leaning people want as many people who can legally vote to vote as possible. Republicans want to narrow that franchise. And narrowing the franchise is not what America's about.
So why do you think that they believe that the vote was stolen?
I think that they're ill-informed and they've got an echo chamber and they're angry. And this helps, it's a cognitive dissonance. This helps them say, oh, you know what? It was stolen. I've got relatives, for God's sakes, and friends that say it's stolen. There have been countless lawsuits that have found no meaningful evidence of vote tampering. And as far as I know, the only votes that were cast improperly generally were by Republicans. So I can't explain why someone feels something that is just utterly factually incorrect. I can't explain, other than pandering, why the Republican Party says that storming the Capitol and doing things that lead to the deaths of multiple police officers and other people is legitimate political discourse. I don't understand a party that says that. That's just not right.
Well, I think I can't speak for the Republicans, but my guess would be that they would think, again, like I said, that the Democratic Party is a cabal of, people that like to speak a bunch of, leftist woke stuff and then just line their pockets with money. They think that organization is corrupt. They understand that people are corrupt, and they understand that let's just say the Republican politicians are each individually corrupt, but they believe the Democrats are corrupt as a group.
Sure, I'm not.
They actually work together.
I'm not saying that they don't believe that. But you asked, why was the election stolen? There's not a shred of evidence that the election was stolen. If you're looking for something to reinforce pre-existing beliefs, you make it up and you say, well, I believe in that made-up thing. I believe that there were dead people voting, or I believe that there were ballots thrown out of airplanes. Or no, for all I know, they believe Martians came down and tampered with the ballots. But I'm telling you, it's very difficult. I've been a poll watcher many, many times in Cambridge and New Hampshire, all over the place, right? It is very difficult to do something that's going to, at least the ballot casting and counting that I've seen, to do something that's going to change the election in that way. It's just too many eyes on it. And that's why we have a Republican and we have a Democrat observer to make sure everyone's doing their job properly. The laws are complex. The workers are unbelievable. It's sort of like being a bank teller. It's just so precise and sort of mundane on the surface, but with so many permutations that it's super complicated, except for these people. They get trained, they do it every other year or every year. It's very complicated. And we're there to help make sure, to the best that we can without interfering with the process, that it goes as smoothly as possible and that every vote that should be cast gets cast and that every vote that's cast gets counted.
Okay, so do you believe if you weren't there that the Republicans would actually rig the elections?
I believe they're going to try it even though I am here.
I
absolutely 100%. I think what the Republicans are going to do is bring in doubters at the end of the campaign, after count. And we saw this in 2000 in the presidential elections, which beyond a doubt Gore won. But a bunch of the votes got cast out because of the hanging chads, and also there was a sort of the butterfly ballot in one of the counties where, of all things, Pat Buchanan got like 10 gazillion votes by a bunch of Jewish people who would no more vote for Pat Buchanan than, I don't know, anyone. So when the recount was going on in Florida, Tom DeLay was busting essentially thugs up to rattle cages. It's intimidating. I've been in political office. I've looked out at a crowd full of angry people, and I gotta say, it can be intimidating, and I think that's what the Republicans are going to do here. I think they're going to...
Right, and I think we should probably just wrap this first one up because we're at 14 minutes. I think I'm not, obviously, as you know, personally, I see what you see and I agree with you, but I have to argue that why are they that angry? I mean, it's not...
Well, sure. They're angry for whatever. They're angry because life has passed them by, because they don't have the money that they wish they had, that their back hurts them, that the jobs have all moved to Cambridge. I'm not saying it's not a complex world and they don't have reasons to be angry. I am saying that they don't have reasons to steal the elections, suppress votes, kill police officers, take over our nation's capital. They don't have any justification for doing that. You can be angry if you want, but once you start throwing punches, and let's be clear on this, this is historically how America has worked. The Civil War is a perfect example of that. The South, and arguably you could say this started with Cain and Abel, but the South, this sort of rural society in friction with the North, an urban, more industrialized society, they started succeeding from the Union before Lincoln was even president.
No, I know. I mean, Yeah, I mean, civil wars and succession happen all over the globe in all countries throughout history. So I mean, it's not.
And
This
I'm
isn't
and
like
I'm
a new
telling
thing,
I'm telling you that we are reliving some of those past lessons. And
right?
eventually,
Okay.
and as has always happened, whether it's the Civil War or the Salem witch trials or whatever, the more liberal, more urbanized parts of the world will win out. Parts of America will win out. And it would be best if we could learn how to do this as a group to bring everyone on board without the pain and the horrors that come with the infighting of a civil war, whether it's bombs going off or people just not talking to the neighbors. I am not saying that angry Republicans are wrong in many of the things that they're upset about. Nor am I
Okay.
nor am I saying that angry Republicans, for example, don't have the right to believe that women should be forced to bear children, right? They want to be forced birth. If they think women should be breeders, then by all means, that's something they can believe in. They can't beat people. They can't steal elections. They can't intimidate people from the polls to force women to breed children. That can be their vote. That can be their voice. It can't be accomplished through intimidation and through suppression. And that's where we are now, and that's why I'm in Georgia.
Okay. Well, let's pick this up again tomorrow. And thanks.